After years of staging on top of the sports world, Tatsuya finally grows tired of the downsides that come with being famous. He joins Nukin High School as a first year, hoping to keep his distance from the competitive world. This is because over time Tatsuya started hating the coaches who degrade their players for making the smallest mistakes. Everyone feared that the media might turn the spotlight on them if he didn't perform at the top of the game. And worst of all were his teammates who got jealous of Tatsuya for hogging all the attention. Yet, Tatsuya didn't resent his friends, as he knew that the entire sports world was based on competitiveness. Still, he grew tired of the day-to-day pressure, and decided to quit being the rookie star kicker in the soccer world. Unfortunately, the club members at Nukin don't respect his decision to leave. They constantly knock on his door every morning to lure him back into the world of sports. Tatsuya makes it clear that he hates sports with every fiber of his being, but the players insists on him joining their match as an observer. The back-to-back arguments leads him to rile up in anger and force them to leave. Nowadays, Tatsuya only wants to be a part of the internet world where he can erase someone he doesn't like with a single click. Unbeknownst to people in his real life, Tatsuya has started live streaming as Night's End. He goes live for a question and answer session for his fans. Though, all of them want to know about his personal life. While skimming through the questions, Tatsuya finds a comment, asking why he refused the soccer club's invitation this morning. This invasion of privacy forces Tatsuya to question his decision to use a simple face mask as a disguise. Moreover, he can't pinpoint who the person on his stream might be. At the same time, Soma, a first year from the Kabaddi team, enters his room only to find him flabbergasted. He ignores every obvious social cues just to invite him to their match. Tatsuya naturally refuses, as Kabaddi is something unrelated to him. However, Soma grabs him by the waist and begs Tatsuya to come. Despite his small build, his strength is enough to hold Tatsuya locked in one place, which forces him to grow violent. After breaking free, Tatsuya realizes that Soma won't leave without him and that will ruin his live stream. With no choice left, he gets ready and walks to the old gym with Soma. During this time, the Baldy excitedly climaxes himself while describing the sports. But to Tatsuya it is just a one-time thing. Still, the fact remains that his enthusiasm for the sports does leave a mark on Tatsuya. They eventually enter the old gym only to see Misumi tackle Shinji to the ground. Once the players notice Tatsuya inside their humble estate, they go wild with excitement of meeting a famous person. The two buddies stick their noses into Tatsuya's personal space. However, the vice-captain Yura soon arrives to handle the situation. He apologizes for sending a first year to invite Tatsuya. But after their captain was hospitalized, Yura had to manage various problems at the same time. Yura's demeanor tells Tatsuya that he's the only nice guy in the club. He takes him to a corner, and appeals to leave the club without watching the match. Unexpectedly, Yura reveals that he is a big fan of Night End's live stream. He wishes to share his live streams with the entire school for promotional purposes. Although, Tatsuya quickly realizes that he has stepped into the lion's den. With that, Tatsuya sits with Yura on the sidelines for a quick Kabaddi 101 while the rest of the team demonstrates the gameplay. Firstly, Yura explains that Soma will play as the raider in his first turn. His job is to enter the opposing team's territory and tag the defenders. After a successful tag, the defensive team enters a phase called struggle. They stop Soma from going back to his side, which would have earned him the points. By doing this, the defensive side earns a point instead. Each team gets a chance to attack and defend, leading to the creation of Kabaddi. The demonstration, combined with Yura's explanation, gives Tatsuya a broader insight on the sports. But the vice-captain isn't satisfied with him just watching from the sidelines. He forces Soma and Tatsuya to act as defenders while he raids. As the round begins, Yura slowly approaches Tatsuya to test his skills. He intends to lure them in the same direction. However, Tatsuya senses bloodlust and moves out of the way. Unfortunately, his insight doesn't prove to be useful because Yura easily tags both of them. Once the match ends, Yura asks Soma and Tatsuya to play against each other while he collects their performance data. He tells Shinji and Misumi that Tatsuya has more to him than just good reflexes and physique. He was surprised that Tatsuya could sense his intentions and move out of the way. Not only that, even Soma doesn't manage to touch him during 15 minutes of gameplay. All things considered, the team decides that Tatsuya will be a great fit for their club. Yet, the fact remains that Tatsuya doesn't want to play sports. Still, Yura shows his appreciation towards Tatsuya by increasing his live stream members to the triple digits. He claims that his online network stretches far and wide into the thousands. He can ask them to increase Tatsuya's followers overnight only if he joins the team. Though the offer is enticing, Tatsuya is one of those people who tends to take a step back when things are moving too fast. Yura understands this after seeing him play, and thus, he offers a small solution to the dilemma. According to Yura, if Tatsuya loses to Soma in an official match, he will have to join the team. But if the opposite happens, then Yura will increase his following without any strings attached. Tatsuya immediately thinks that he has the advantage over Soma both physically and mentally. However, Yura and the believe that their practice routine didn't include tackling their opponents. As Tatsuya raids Soma's territory, Yura and the other members watch the match, anticipating that Tatsuya will lose. However, the most unexpected thing happens, as Tatsuya punches Soma and walks back to his territory without any trouble. The team yells at him for being too desperate. Yet, Tatsuya innocently claims that he didn't know the rules. Despite everything, Soma only blames himself for letting his guard down even when Tatsuya shortened his reach by clenching his fists. His comment helps Tatsuya realize that sport isn't as simple as he thought. He notices that extending his hand and legs would have given him a much higher chance of reaching his opponent. Not only that, raiders with incredible reach can also score points even if the defenders tackle them near the midfield. Thus, in the second round, Tatsuya doesn't wait for Soma to come to him. He lures him in the middle of the court and launches a surprise tackle. At that moment, Tatsuya thinks that he has won the match. However, soon he realizes that Soma's size doesn't match his strength. The first year drags Tatsuya with him to cross the midline within seconds. That's when Yura reveals that Soma spent most of his life in the mountains, where every day was like a hardcore gym session. Still, Tatsuya thinks that with his new understanding of reach, he can win during the next raid. Naturally, the news of Tatsuya the Unstoppable joining the team spreads like wildfire, even reaching the ears of the football coach. At first, he thought that Tatsuya would come around and join the club. Yet, upon hearing the news, he visits his dorm and begs Tatsuya to join the club. Unfortunately, Tatsuya refuses his invitation, claiming that he was forced to join the Kabaddi club. Later that day, Tatsuya goes back to the club for their practice sessions. The loss from the other day motivates Tatsuya to beat Soma in a one-on-one round. However, even with all of his tactics and superior speed, he can't manage to escape the dumb muscle head. After a few rounds, the others advise Tatsuya to practice his defensive plays with the team. Yet for some random reason, Tatsuya refuses to play defense. He would rather get stuck with Jeffrey Epstein than hold hands with a bunch of muscle-headed boys. Shinji notices his fear of manliness and tries to use explicit language to make things more uncomfortable, all just to annoy the new kid. Eventually, Yura steps into the conversation, revealing that holding hands or chaining is an essential part of a team's defense. They can't hope to catch an agile raider with just one player at a time. That is why they link up with chains, block the raider from all sides to stop him from crossing the mid-line. He thinks that Tatsuya should try raiding with the entire defense team to get a feel for the game. Since the vice-captain holds all the authority in the room, Tatsuya has no choice but to follow. He steps into the court and immediately notices that Masumi is the weakest link in the chain. Tatsuya develops his footwork to touch him from the side. However, Yura had already expected this, so they counter him effortlessly. As the boys take a short break, Tatsuya mentions that Soma has inferior speed and reach compared to him. However, he still couldn't manage to steal a single point off the defense. Suddenly, Yura reveals that Soma does unnecessary things during his raids, which make it much more difficult to predict. His observation during previous round told him that Shinji is the strongest out of the three. Masumi also lacks speed and strength in comparison to Shinji and him. Though, over time, Tatsuya has noticed that at the core his losses are his faults. He tends to raise his voice while chanting Kabaddi the moment he goes in for the touch. This allows Yura to sense an attack and avoid it. Yura calls off the break. Tatsuya announces that he will show a hat trick that will leave everyone speechless. Yura immediately thinks that his so-called special plan is nothing but a bluff. And as expected, Tatsuya feints his footsteps to move in for Yura, but the vice-captain manages to dodge the touch effortlessly. At that moment, the unstoppable rookie pulls out a heavenly move. He touches Shinji with his feet, and takes a step back. Unfortunately, one of shoelace gets untied, leading him to a bad fall. Despite that, Tatsuya manages to reach the midline to secure his first successful raid, but as the referee, Soma, calls that Tatsuya crossed the line before it. Although the practice session ends, Yura gathers everyone to announce they will be going for shopping tomorrow. He wants to restock on club supplies, but his real goal is to help Tatsuya buy a pair of Kabaddi shoes. The following day, after class, Tatsuya quickly leaves his class to slip away from school. He doesn't want to go shopping with a bunch of gay dudes. However, the entire club who were already waiting for him outside drag him with them. While they walk, Soma emphasizes on the fact that everyone in their club has the same bag. Later at the shop, Yura picks out a shoe for Tatsuya with a low sole and high ankle. But something unexpected comes up, as the boys ask about Tatsuya's reason for quitting soccer. This reminds him of the time when his teammates blamed him for running too fast, yet, instead of badmouthing his teammates, Tatsuya declares that he hates sports. The boys soon find Tatsuya the perfect pair of shoe, and decide to call it a day. Unexpectedly, Tatsuya runs into a couple of boys from the basketball team who immediately recognize him from his golden days. At that moment, Tatsuya finds Soma and brings him to test his grip strength. His score of 214 scares the shit out of the mommy's boys, but Yura arrives on the scene to show them an entirely different hell. He somehow learned a secret of their club, and uses it to blackmail them into finding the Kabaddi team new recruits. Hearing this, Misumi mentions that they are short on players, which makes it tough to practice defense. Just then, Tatsuya claims that he can help them on a condition that they don't hold hands with him. Suddenly, Soma receives a text from a girl in his class, asking him to set her up with Tatsuya. With that, everyone starts teasing the rookie as their new lady killer. However, they soon learn that only Soma is the one amongst them who has a girlfriend. For a moment, Tatsuya tries to ignore this revelation, thinking that she'll be some cow like witch who took advantage of Soma's desperation. But upon checking Soma's phone, Tatsuya discovers that the girl he is dating is exactly her tile. He takes a solemn oath for all of men around the world, swearing to kill Soma right where he stands. He even goes as far as to convince him that long-distance relationships don't work out, and that he's a better fit for her. Moving aside from the Little Love Island episode, the team gets back to their training. But this time, Tatsuya and Soma are forced to work together for defense. Still, their efforts don't amount to much, as the two players keep running into each other, allowing Misumi and Shinji to raid successfully. However, instead of focusing on the game, Tatsuya wastes his breath on Soma, yet his bald head reflects every word of wisdom. In the end, they lose with 24 points to 4, which leaves them devastated. With that, the two of them have no choice but to ask their seniors for help. Even so, their intentions is good. Misumi's weirdly phrased advice doesn't inspire Tatsuya. The seniors want them to imagine a group of fish protecting one another from an attack, but Tatsuya rather not listen to their graphical explanations. However, Yura claims that they should listen to the advice because they shouldn't have lost this badly. They are only 1 year apart from Misumi and Shinji in both experience and age. Still, they manage to win with a miles difference due to Tatsuya and Soma's. On top of that, Yura forces Misumi and Shinji to taunt the losers with insults that even their mothers didn't use. This motivates Tatsuya to think of a way they can improve their coordination on the court as soon as possible. Naturally, Soma comes up with a dumb idea, saying they should just tell each other about their movements on the field. But soon, his single brain cell realizes that the raiders will also hear their next move. Unexpectedly, Tatsuya uses his idea as an inspiration to create signals for their movements. He believes that it will help stay clear of each other's path. Much to everyone's surprise, their plans works on the court. But Misumi and Shinji still manage to win by a 10 points difference. Yet, despite their loss, Yura appreciates Soma, claiming that tactic Tatsuya came up with is top-notch. He goes further complimenting Tatsuya's quick thinking and tactical fortitude. Soma agrees that these qualities make their rookie unstoppable, but according to him, Tatsuya's gift lies in his determination to give it his all in sports and studies. The very next day, Tatsuya calls Soma to a very narrow pathway to his favorite bento place. He explains that they can use the alleys and crowd to practice their evasions techniques together. Their goal is to cross the path without touching a single person. This will improve their speed and instincts for Kabaddi. After days of practice, there finally comes a day when the two of them evade every single person standing in the narrow pathway. They stare at Tatsuya and Soma with fiery eyes, but he's excited to meet Misumi and Shinji in their upcoming match. Although before their session begins, Misumi mentions that Shinji used to play baseball back in middle school. He's interested to know if there was someone interesting in his team. But unexpectedly, the conversations trunks back to Misumi, as Shinji said that they're members who idolized him and teammates who viewed him as a competition. In any case, both agree that being viewed as competition is exciting, which is why they love their new teammates. As Yura signals the start of the match, Misumi enters the court as a raider. Little does he know that Tatsuya plans to use himself as a decoy to lure him in. Still, Yura realizes that no decoy would let himself get this close to Raider. It is something that only Tatsuya the Unstoppable can accomplish. The rookie dodges Misumi's touch, and helps Soma do the same. In the end, the two of them manage to draw out the round until Misumi loses his breath. Unfortunately, Tatsuya isn't able to take the raid from them with his tactics, since he refuses to acknowledge the importance of the chain defense. However, Shinji doesn't want to go easy on the boys, which would let them to believe that their signs are flawless. During their raid, Shinji shows them that his abnormal strength is enough to shatter Tatsuya's tactics. Throughout the entire match, Yura notices that Tatsuya's tactics help them to evade a touch, but he doesn't have the experience to tackle an opponent. Even Tatsuya himself starts to feel the heavy burden of coordinating his plans with Soma. This is also the reason he never did link-up plays in soccer, because none of his teammates could envision what he saw. They were never at the right place to receive a pass to make the goal. On top of that, they would blame him for moving too fast, which in turn caused Tatsuya hate the idea of working with teammates. Back in the present, Tatsuya decides to take the Rai once again. However, Soma emphasizes that he's short of breath after calling out signs and doing consecutive raids. His refusal to follow the command makes Tatsuya angry. But Soma reminds him that he isn't some machine made for him to use. Yura says the very same thing, understanding that Tatsuya has never watched his teammates fight opponents like him. He thinks that in due time, Tatsuya will come to understand the true meaning of having teammates. At that moment, Tatsuya glances at Masumi and Shinji's defense stance only to discover that they are leaning inward to counter Soma's physical strength. Yet, despite all of their effort, Soma effortlessly touches both of them to earn 2 points off a single raid. He excitedly runs back to Tatsuya only to find him in shock due to learning a new thing from his raid. Before Shinji and Masumi's turn, the two of them discuss the signs Tatsuya has been using for days. He realizes that they have been using even numbers to go right, odd numbers to go left, and double digits to dodge an attack. He plans to use this information to win the next raid. However, during their next defensive round, Masumi gets close to Tatsuya for his revenge for all the previous rounds. At that moment, Tatsuya calls for, which leads Masumi to believe that he'll move to the right. Naturally, Masumi attacks in that direction, but to his shock, Tatsuya moves to the left. In reality, he never intended to use numbers as a real sign. He only did that to confuse his opponents into thinking they were real. Behind all of those facades, he told Soma to focus on his fingers instead. With Masumi in the right position, Tatsuya realizes that he was too focused on tackling the upper body. But in principle he should pivot the foot where the center of mass aligns. As soon as this thought comes to mind, Tatsuya tackles Masumi's foot, but then he realizes he forgot to share his plans with Soma. He thinks that all of his efforts are in vain, but at that moment, Soma arrives on the scene to knock Masumi off his feet. Naturally, as someone who could never rely on his teammates, Tatsuya doesn't understand how Soma knew about his plan without his signals. He reveals that the last time Tatsuya gained insight on the match, he did something crazy right after. This served as Soma's clue, telling him to watch Tatsuya closely and assist with his plan. The moment everything that just happened sinks in, Tatsuya starts to feel goosebumps on his entire body. However, Masumi and Shinji claim that they have been enjoying this feeling for a long time. Moreover, they believe that there is something beyond that as well. As the match continues, the first years manage to catch up with only a 3-point difference between them. That's when Masumi drops his defenses and goes beast mode on the rookies. Seeing his hunger makes Yura confess that the sport of Kabaddi originates from wrestling with living creatures. There was a time in history when humans used to catch beasts empty-handed, which later evolved into a sport. Despite all the tactics Tatsuya tries, he fails to stop Masumi from jumping to cross the midline. With 5 points in the lead, Tatsuya realizes that everything relies on his final raid. He needs to get 2 points, but in the end he manages to score only 1. Even so, the team loses miserably, leading Tatsuya and Soma to feel incredibly frustrated. Though the feeling also makes him realize that Kabaddi is a boring sport if he loses all the time. He vows to himself to find a way to complete that last step they are always short of. Yet, Kabaddi isn't the only thing that Tatsuya needs to worry about, as his grades start to slip up again at school. On top of that, his mother keeps messaging, dying to know about his son's experience at the new club. Somehow this news leaks in the entire school, which leads the other student to question him about Kabaddi as well. The boys think he can easily surpass his peers because of his speed and evasion techniques. However, Tatsuya corrects them, explaining that empty-handed sports are not easy to play. Hearing that excites the boys, but it only stems further questions. Eventually, they ask about the number of players needed for a match. Yet, Tatsuya never bothered to ask Yura about the requirements of players. As soon as class ends, Tatsuya takes Soma to the rooftop for their Kabaddi 101 discussions. Though, Soma reveals that he doesn't know about the official player count either. He confesses that remembering the basic rules is already hard enough for him. Since people didn't play sports in his village, their only physical activity was to go up and down the mountain and fishing. Eventually, Tatsuya is left with no choice but to ask Yura for directions. He reveals that they need 7 members, but most teams would let them play 5-on-5 because the number of the court fluctuates. To explain things further, Yura uses dodgeball as an example. He explains that every time a raider touches someone from the defense, they are forced to step out of the court. With that, Tatsuya is able to quench his curiosity and focus on practice. But the thought of being alone on the defenses starts to scare him, which is why he asks Shinji for advice. The two of them visit his dorm room only to discover that Shinji comes for a family of baseball players. He had bolts a physique necessary for that sport, but it also came in handy with Kabaddi. However, Shinji advises against Tatsuya gaining more muscle because he's already near the max weight limit. Aside from that, racking up more muscle would slow him down. Shinji emphasizes that speed is more important than strength in Kabaddi. In the end, Tatsuya realizes he can't gain more weight because of the limit. Still, he wants to test out his strength against the weakest player on the team in terms of strength. For that to happen, Tatsuya asks Yura to be the raider during their next practice sessions. He immediately leaves the chain, hinting to Yura that he wants to fight one-on-one. As always, Tatsuya closer to Yura with the confidence that he'll be able to evade a touch. Naturally, that is what happens, which leaves everyone shocked. Soon, Yura starts running out of breath. Hence, he decides to walk back to the other side. However, Tatsuya tells him to stop because he's the only one who Tatsuya can tackle. After hearing his 1-minute-long speech, Yura reveals that he never wanted Tatsuya to focus on defense. He wants him to become the strongest beast that Nukin and the world has ever seen when it comes to raids. With that, Tatsuya is left with no choice but to work on his speed. He even wears a mask to create a sensation similar to chanting Kabaddi during raids. While he loses himself in the heat of the moment, a frowny weak young man named Masato accidentally bumps into him. He quickly apologizes and tries to rush away, but his head suddenly starts spinning. This forces Tatsuya to help him sit on a bench to get and hydrate. During this time, Masato reveals that he's a part of a small sports club at his high school. Not only that, he heard that there are 2 talented rookies that just joined while he was away. One of them is a famous player from another sport. Masto was so excited to see them that he rushed to his school, which caused the accident. At that moment, Misumi and Shinji, who were passing by with Tatsuya's welcome party supplies, watch the two of them together. They immediately rush over to pay respects to their captain, leaving Tatsuya shocked. The unstoppable rookie can't believe that an ugly-looking dude is the leader of the Muscle Head group. He even defeats him in an arm wrestling match, further putting him in doubt. All of these things considered, Tatsuya doesn't understand in what world everyone would choose Masato as their captain. He tries to hold it in, but eventually caves in the desire to ask about his worth directly. Tatsuya claims that he isn't fit to lead the team. Yet, none of the others seem to agree with him. They try to stop him from speaking out loud. However, Masato allows him to continue. Once the rookie is done yapping, Masato trunks to high with a bloodlust in his eyes, claiming he's the strongest amongst them. To prove his words, Masato asks Yura for permission to play a match against Tatsuya. He expects that everyone will join the defense for his raid, but only Tatsuya and Soma agree to play. Right before the start of the match, Masato vanishes before Tatsuya's eyes before he could even flinch. His primal instinct starts to let loose, but soon he controls himself. Once Masato enters the court, Tatsuya notices that the captain's center of gravity is all over the place. He judges him based on the wrestling match earlier, thinking that this will be a piece of cake. Yet, at that very moment, Masato somehow touches Tatsuya's chest and returns to his side of the court. This all happens, but the so-called unstoppable rookie doesn't even get a chance to move an inch. Even Soma is left speechless, seeing that Masato's skill works against Tatsuya. He reveals that back in the day Masato crossed his path while fishing in extreme winter. Despite his experience living in the mountains, Soma couldn't catch a single fish. However, Masato caught one with every throw. He claimed that changing one's breathing style in a certain way can make them undetected to other living creatures. This is something he just used against Tatsuya, but instead of admitting defeat, Tatsuya claims that his guard was down. After a little discussion with Yura, the captain agrees to give Tatsuya his rematch. Still, he doesn't want to go easy on him whatsoever. As the match begins, Tatsuya notices that Masato is keeping them at the far right of his vision. He realizes that his abilities to judge a situation can't read his move or patterns. At that moment, Masato appears out of nowhere from the side. Despite managing to dodge, Tatsuya isn't satisfied with his performance. He stops the match midway to ask if Masato is skilled in feinting his opponents. Naturally, the captain can't believe that one of his teammates stopped the match to ask him a question. Still, he doesn't let this get to the head, and refuses to reveal his true abilities. With that, the match starts once again. Although this time, Tatsuya keeps a close eye on Masato's breathing. He pinpoints his center of gravity, but the dark aura emitting from his body makes it impossible for Tatsuya to read. With all of these things taken into, the rookie realizes that trying to read Masato is a waste of time. Instead, he unconsciously intends to become unreadable as well, which leads Tatsuya to copy Masato's movement. This is something that surpasses the feats Tatsuya has pulled off before, as it even shocked the soul out of Yura. The whole thing excites Masato into revealing a portion of his true strength. He approaches the two of them while they are chained without a worry. At first, Tatsuya thinks that it must be a feint. However, Masato touches and makes his way back to the other side. Without any delays, Tatsuya grabs Masato by the wrist, a sign that he is scared of Masato. But in that moment, the captain counters and throws him to the ground. He even manages to escape Soma's grip to steal 2 points. After the devastating loss, Tatsuya contemplates that being the strongest raider on their team might not as easy as he thought. Yet, instead of giving up, the thought of Masato still hiding his strength puts a fire in him. Over the next few practice rounds, Yura informs Masato about the team's performance with accurate numbers. He reveals that 70% of Tatsuya's raids are a success, with 1 point. Unfortunately, that number drops by 40 when it comes to stealing 2 points. Aside from that, he has never stolen 3 or more points in a single raid. However, as of now, Yura believes that Masato coming back will help him improve further. Suddenly, Soma starts fishing for his own compliments. He wants to gain some insights into his game. Yet, the strangest things happens, as Masato claims that he's fine as it is, which annoys the hell out of Tatsuya. The others see his reaction and laugh, but Masato soon turns his attention to them. He explains that Masumi has a habit of giving into his primal instincts, focusing too much on the catch. This leaves him unbearable to touch. On the other hand, Shinji is the opposite of Masumi. He remains cautious at all times, and that reduces his chances of catching the raider. Finally, he explains that they must find a fine line between showing caution and aggression to stop the raider. With that, the entire team calls it a day, but Tatsuya can't help but think he can't surpass Masato even after months of practice. Suddenly, he hears a knock on the door, letting him to believe that someone is here to invite him to a club. Though, his body freezes when he finds Masato standing at the entrance. For some reason, he wanted to share his homemade meal with the strongest rookie at their team. Yet, Masato's real objective was to learn about the people who make it to nationals. After a deep inhale, Tatsuya reveals that only a handful of obsessed geniuses can make it to the big stage. Despite being called the unstoppable rookie, he only made it to the top 4 of the national tournament. It doesn't provide any consolation, but Masato also reveals that he never won a game in the major tournament. He only got a chance to play in international tournaments across, which is something that shocks Tatsuya. However, he has never been satisfied with being anything but the best. That is why he wants Tatsuya and himself to use Kabaddi and become the #1 players in the entire world. With that, the captain leaves with Yura, who was unexpectedly standing outside the whole time. On their way back, Yura mentions the hassle Tatsuya caused him, though Masato claims that it was nothing compared to the time when he scouted Yura 6 years ago. Putting that aside, the captain believes that he wants the newcomers to play a practice match. He knows that some of the club members haven't tasted the bitterness of defeat because they never had the chance to play. Still, Yura makes it clear that he won't set the team up to lose deliberately. Masato shares his vision, claiming that his old friend Ayumu might throw them a bone. Looking back, the last time they met was when Masato and Ayumu were competing together in an international tournament. However, now Ayumu is the captain of the Kabaddi team at Suwa High School, and his ace raider is a self-absorbed clinical douchebag Ren. Despite slacking off in almost every training session, Ren makes the magic happen when it counts. This is also the reason his teammates don't stress over his performance issues. They let him do whatever he wants, knowing he can win when thinking as the other boys. Still, Ayumu doesn't share the same thinking. He constantly pushes Ren to extreme extents because he knows that there are raiders like Masato who can crush him in an instant. Back at Nukin High School, Masato breaks the news of their practice match with the boys. Almost immediately, Tatsuya starts to wonder if the team will be a pushover. However, Masato clears his misunderstanding, as he reveals that their opponents are monsters in their own right. To further explain his point, Masato reveals that Ayumu's team have been ranked the top 4 in all of Japan. If someone discusses Kabaddi in the prime city like Tokyo, then Suwa High School is the first name that comes to their mind. Upon hearing all of this, Tatsuya reckons that they should have picked a team that wasn't one of the best in their country. Still, the thought of playing the best excites him. On the other hand, Ren challenges Ayumu to a one-on-one match because none of the others excite him enough to get out of bed. Naturally, even after being the best raider at their school, Ren can't get away from Ayumu's grab. But the reason he wanted Ayumu to assess his skills were to learn if Masato is better than him. After looking into Ren's soul for a few minutes, he reveals that Masato is far better at raiding than him. Meanwhile, Masato spends hours alone with Tatsuya to train him for the upcoming match. He claims that Ren has similar reach and speed. However, his chant time is far greater than any he's ever seen. Usually a normal raider can keep up the chant for 30 seconds, but Ren can maintain it for a minute, giving him enough to plan his raids. Despite this, Masato explains that he will teach Tatsuya a bunch of techniques that can help him beat Suwa's ace raider. On the day of the match, Masato finally comes ace to face with his old friend Ayumu. In that instance, Tatsuya notices that they are friendly. Though, the vibe changes instantly, as Ayumu trash talks Masato for staying in the hospital for too long. The skinny captain doesn't hold back either. He taunts Ayumu, claiming that his team members don't need his command all the time to do basic things. While everyone from Nukin High School walks to the dressing room, rumors about Tatsuya starts to fill the room. They believe that he quit soccer because he couldn't be the number one in Japan. Upon entering the dressing room, the team runs into Run. He shares a brief fanboy moment with Masato, and shares his excitement to play him. Naturally, Masato reveals that he won't be playing due to his injuries. However, Run overshadows his comment by saying that he'll force him to join the match in the second half. In the end, the toss goes Suwa and they choose to raid. Ren decides that he will show everyone what Suwa is made of. He touches Yura and Misumi, but fails to enter the struggle phase with Tatsuya. Ultimately, he returns to the bonus line earning 3 points in total. Besides, Yura and Misumi are forced to leave the match until Tatsuya can earn 3 points and bring them back in. Still, the entire stadium watching doesn't believe that Tatsuya will amount to much. Unexpectedly, all of their mouths are shut when Tatsuya deliberately gathers Suwa's entire defense in one place and performs a kicking maneuver which touches 3 players. He then crosses the midline effortlessly. His performance everyone's perspective about Nukin's high school. Still, Yura warns him not to be overconfident. He claims that Tatsuya's hat trick trap is the key that will lead them to victory. The 3 points Tatsuya stole from the other side allows Yura and Misumi to re-enter the court. However, the audience doesn't think that their stay will last much longer, as Ren comes back to raid. This time however, Tatsuya decides to take him on one-on-one. He uses the same tactics he used back on Yura and the others. Yet, Ren's speed doesn't prove to be a bother since Tatsuya had been practicing with Masato. Unexpectedly, Ren makes use of his ears just as he keeps his eyes open. He hears the sound of Tatsuya's shoes moving in a specific direction, which allows him to enter the struggle phase. But despite being at the edge of the midline, Ren goes deeper into the court. His way of thinking confuses Tatsuya, as always focused on a successful raid. Yet, Ren on the other hand crosses the bonus line to earn 1 extra point. Aside from that situation, Ayumu puts all of his energy and effort into touching both Yura and Misumi during his raid so that he can return to his side of the court with a total of 4 points for his team. The numbers on the scoreboard are not their only worry and concern because Tatsuya, Yura, and Misumi are all forced to leave the playing court due to being eliminated. This situation means that currently there are no experienced raiders left on Nukin's side of the team to go on offensive attacks. Even though things look difficult, Tatsuya still hopes and believes that Soma will be able to use his enormous physical strength and power to help the team gain some momentum and turn the match around in their favor. Because this is Soma's first match, he gets nervous, so Shinji decides to take the raid instead. Right away, Ren notices that Shinji's footsteps don't have any speed. Confidently, Ren goes one-on-one and grabs Shinji's leg. But then, unexpectedly, Shinji dashes toward the midline, dragging Ren with him. Eventually, Ayumu starts to notice that his ace raider is struggling and needs some assistance from his teammates. Ayumu decides to jump into the action happening on the court with the specific goal of taking down Shinji using just one of his hands to eliminate him. This entire scene and what just happened causes everyone who is on the Nukin side to start thinking again about their current situation in the match. Yura comes to the realization that seeing their strongest and best player get defeated so easily with just one move must really shake up the confidence of the entire team. Yura starts wondering if Ayumu actually wanted this specific thing to happen during the match. However, much to the surprise of everyone who is watching, Ayumu starts giving compliments to Shinji about his physical abilities and shows that he really admires Shinji's dedication and strong work ethic when it comes to training. Unfortunately, Ayumu also reveals the truth that Shinji's body type and physical build are not really well suited for playing the sport of Kabaddi effectively. Afterward, Yura tells Masato to go for a catch if he sees an opening. Right after that, Ren moves fast toward Masato, but Masato dodges out of the way. Ren thinks there's no way he can touch Masato with a straight attack, and he also feels like Masato can see all his moves and stop them before they happen. Then, Ren moves again, saying Kabaddi as he goes. When Ren's foot lands on the mark, Masato moves forward at the same time and tries to grab Ren's leg. But Ren quickly pulls back before he can get caught and starts sweating like he just saw a ghost. Meanwhile, all the girls start cheering loudly for their Renkuin. After that, Ren tries to defend himself, but Masato moves in fast and almost touches him, yet Ren manages to dodge at the last second. Masato still gets a bonus point, but then more members from Suwa High School show up to stop him. They decide to block every path he could take to escape, since they can't figure out or follow any of his movements. However, Masato manages to push through and make an opening, even against guys who are actually stronger than him. After that, Team Nukin scores 3 more points, bringing their total to 18. This all happens because Masato went for Ren, but Ren dodged him right away and everyone starts thinking something is off with Masato since he never had skills like that before. Ren then says there were people like this in swimming too, whose personalities and movements completely changed during a match, but he sank all of them and became number 1. After that, it's Nukin's turn to defend with 5 players, and Ren from Suwa gets ready to raid. Yura wonders if Ren will go after Masato again and thinks about how Ren might be planning his next move. Suddenly, Ren moves his leg to try and touch Masato, but Masato quickly dodges and charges Ren's leg to catch him. Just as Ren quickly reaches out to touch Masato's head, Tatsuya grabs Ren's leg, stopping him. After that happens, the 2 raiders begin fighting against each other to eliminate players, and they each focus on trying to target the strongest player on the opposing team. However, the difference in skill level between these 2 players slowly starts to become clear and obvious, and the 2 players who are fighting against each other directly are Ren and Masato, who are going head-to-head in this competition. The players on Team Nukin start wondering about how they are only behind by 4 points and there is not much difference in the total number of touches that each team has made, so they cannot understand how this situation is even possible. It becomes clear that the real problem lies in how successful each team has been at earning bonus points, and when it comes to having a natural understanding and feel for the actual size of the playing court. Masato's knowledge and awareness of the court dimensions is much better than his opponent's abilities. After that, Team Suwa calls a 30-second timeout, and Ayumu tells his teammates not to let Masato score any more points. But Ren looks worried as he watches the members of Team Nukin arguing with each other. It turns out Masato is angry at Yura and asks why he can't go out for the next raid. Yura tells Masato that the other team is starting to understand his moves, and it's making him tired and wearing down his stamina. Then, Yura says he's not telling Masato to be afraid of getting hurt, but if they wear him out too much, it will be the end of the tournament for them. Yura grabs Masato by the collar and tells him to stay motivated. Then, Masato explains to Tatsuya that he will go in his place during this round because Tatsuya is the player who has the ability to defeat Ren in a direct confrontation. The match begins again with Team Suwa taking their defensive positions while Tatsuya gets himself ready to go on his raid against the opposing team. Ayumu feels shocked and surprised that Masato is not playing as the raider in this particular round of the game. But then, everyone on both teams becomes surprised when they see Tatsuya walking forward with a completely different expression on his face, showing that there is a fire burning deep inside him and that he is completely ready to defeat Ren in battle. Takanaka thinks to himself that this is the very first time that a rookie player has been given such an important and crucial role in a match, and all that Tatsuya can concentrate on right now is helping his team achieve victory. But the truth is that Tatsuya is actually feeling very angry about the situation. He tells Ren that everyone trains hard and even practices like fools, all so they can win and celebrate like fools. Then, Tatsuya makes his first move, trying to touch 2 members of Team Suwa, but they dodge. Tatsuya quickly reaches out and almost touches Ren, but Ren immediately runs after him. Another member joins Ren, and together they form a chain block with their hands to stop Tatsuya from escaping. Ayumu quickly moves toward them to finish the play, but Tatsuya, already fired up from losing many times before, refuses to give up. He suddenly breaks free by jumping away, shocking everyone in the stadium. Tatsuya almost reaches the finish line while Ren grabs him from behind trying to stop him, and even he could feel Tatsuya's rising spirit. However, Tatsuya uses his long arms and legs to reach out and touch the finish line with his finger. Then, he tells Ren that he learned a lot from him. Now, Suwa leads by 2 points with only 52 seconds left. Nukin is going to defend, and Ayumu from Suwa is the raider. Yura realizes that if Ayumu scores even 1 point, Ren will come back again, and they can't let that happen if they want to protect their final raid. Ayumu then moves to attack Masato, but Masato quickly dodges. Ayumu tries again to attack Masato, but Tatsuya moves in to stop him, making Ayumu wonder if a frail raider like him can really catch Tatsuya. Yura realizes that even if there's only 1 second left, once the raid starts, the game won't end until the raid is over. Right then, Ayumu tries to attack Masato, but Masato dodges. So, Ayumu moves to touch Yura, and Yura notices that Ayumu has been the same ever since they first met. Then, other members of Nukin rush in to capture Ayumu, so he quickly moves back. He remembers that during the winter tournament, they felt like a one-man army with a bunch of helpers. Ayumu tries again to catch Masato, but when 2 members try to capture him, Ayumu immediately touches them both, knocking them out. Suddenly, Tatsuya and Masato appear out of nowhere and grab Ayumu, shocking him as he wonders how they suddenly showed up. The two struggles to hold him, so Yura jumps in and thinks about how he'd imagined for years the moment he'd finally take action against Ayumu. They all work together to stop him from reaching the finish line, with Yura and the others grabbing his arms while the rest grabbing his legs. In the end, they manage to bring him down and the game ends with Nukin losing by just 1 point. After that, Yura tells everyone that the tournament will be in August, exactly 3 months from now, and for them, it's going to be their last one. After the match, Ayumu walks over to greet Yura, saying he didn't know Yura had that kind of strength, and then they all started joking and messing around with each other. Later that night, Tatsuya can't sleep because of the loss, so he goes out for a walk and finds Soma sitting alone. The next day, Tatsuya is spending some time playing around in the washroom, while Diddy is secretly watching him from behind it. After a while, Soma comes over and tells Tatsuya that he went and got the key from Senpai, so they can go to the gym early and start practice before everyone else. Tatsuya says he's fine with it, but the person who is watching them might not be. Later, Tatsuya and Soma take that person to a room, where the guy shows them a membership form, and Soma says that his name is Ben Nobutaka and he wants to join their team. Tatsuya gets up to talk to Soma, but Nobutaka quickly steps back and says in a very quiet voice that he also wants to give it a try. Tatsuya leans closer to Soma and whispers that they can't let someone like him join right now because he seems scary, and it might make it harder for other people to want to join. He says they should wait and keep him on hold until they have more members in the team. After school, Nobutaka along with a baddie who is actually a man and a geek also arrive at Tatsuya and Soma's gym, as they would like to join. The fatty explains that it was Nobutaka who invited them, and that's how they ended up going to watch the practice match. As they watched, they got so excited that they thought it looked like a lot of fun and wanted to try it too. The person with the mysterious gender introduces themselves as a first year named Hitomi, but Tatsuya says they don't need any new members right now. Hitomi then puts a hand on his non-existent chest and says he's actually a boy and he thought maybe joining here could help him become more manly. After that, the fatty says his name is Seiki, and he jokes that he weighs more than a sinking Titanic. Tatsuya tells him that he can't play in tournaments if he's over 80 kilos, but Soma says Seiki already said he'll do it, so he will. Tatsuya warns that if they lose, Seiki will be the one getting hurt and crying. Then Tatsuya decides to test everyone by putting them all on defense while he attacks. When the match starts, Nobutaka suddenly remembers that Tatsuya doesn't seem to recall meeting him back during summer vacation in 2nd grade when Nobutaka used to get bullied. Back then, there was one person who always saved him and that was Tatsuya. Whenever Nobutaka has free time available, he always watches Tatsuya's games and goes to see his practice sessions, and he continues following him around until he learns that Tatsuya plans to quit playing sports completely. Back in the current time during the match, Soma and the other players grab onto Tatsuya's leg tightly, and Tatsuya starts panicking really badly because he does not want to lose the game to a group of players who are just beginners at Kabaddi. Using all of his body weight to his advantage, Seiki successfully pushes Tatsuya away from the other players, and then Soma turns to him and asks if he has ever played any kind of sport before in his life. It becomes clear that this big player actually did sumo wrestling during all 3 years of his middle school career, which explains why he knows how to use his weight so effectively. Just then, Masato, Yura, and the rest arrive at the gym and start making fun of Tatsuya for getting taken down by 3 rookies. In the end, they all decide to join the team, and the next day, Masato goes over some of the rules with them while Yura takes charge of assigning positions. He explains that in the tournament, it's 7 against 7 and they'll start in spots that make it easier to stop the raider. After that, he gives everyone positions that match what they're best at, and then everyone immediately starts practicing. Later that night, Masato tells Yura that everyone's going to work out well for them, but Yura says that of course players with experience in sports tend to do well, but for now, they got to teach them what they can. Soma asks Masato if he's willing to train him too, and Masato notices that Soma has been staying late every day but tells him he doesn't have to push himself so hard. Soma explains that in a real match, a person can't even show a third of what they've done in training, and that's why he wants to keep going as many times as he can. After that, Soma and the others start their training, and they keep practicing over and over until Soma finally feels satisfied. The next day, Yura explains the 2 roles in defense to everyone, saying there are the ones who stop the raider and the ones who help finish off the downed raider in a support role. This time, Tatsuya is the raider while the others are defending. When Hitomi almost charges at Tatsuya, he kicks at him, but Soma steps in to cover for him. Soma then gets angry and, using just the strength of one arm, manages to pin Tatsuya down. Afterward, Team Misumi, which includes Soma, Nobutaka and Misumi, are going against Team Shinji, which includes Tatsuya, Seiki, and the blind guy. Masato explains that Hitomi and Yura will defend for both teams, and Masato gets freaky and tells everyone to stop him. He plays like an insane beast, and the match gets over. Afterward, Tatsuya looks at the score sheet and realizes that Hitomi on the other team lost 13 points, but, on their side, he lost 18 points. Masato asks if he is curious that Hitomi is slacking off or something. Masato then says that if he doesn't know the reason for the 5-point difference in Hitomi's scores, then that means he don't understand each other yet. Masato suggests that they should hang out often, and then, Hitomi, Tatsuya and Soma go out to play some bowling, and they even made a bet that whoever will win gets a treat and the loser team has to pay, so poor Tatsuya is going to pay. After the bowling game, Tatsuya once again keep looking at Hitomi's score and just couldn't understand anything, so he tells everyone that they should head out to eat something now. At the restaurant, Tatsuya asks Hitomi that what's there something about him that doesn't work, and explains that back in practice, it seems that he was able to do well with Soma. Hitomi tells him that Soma covered for him and gave him directions, thought he lost more points because he did that. Seiki says that Tatsuya is actually nice, and Hitomi says that he doesn't rely on anyone, is really amazing Oswell. Still, Tatsuya thinks about how he's never really trusted anyone, but he knows that watching strong people makes you stronger, which is why he always watches closely and learns. A few days later, Tatsuya tells Seiki and Hitomi that he'll act as Yura, just like usual, and then they all start playing the same way as before. Masato notices something different, like Seiki suddenly attacking him instead of coming in at the start of the raid. Out of nowhere, Hitomi also grabs Masato like a crazy person, and then the others join in too, but even then, Masato still wins. After that, Tatsuya tells Hitomi to go for the legs instead of the cheeks. After the game, Misumi wonders how many points he actually took from the other team. Just as he's starting to think about his next move, Masato quickly taps him on the shoulder. It's break time now, and Misumi notices he's 1 point behind the other team. Masato has been raiding during the team's defense practice for the past week. The first years are starting to get a good idea of how to improve, but Misumi, who's always been paired with Shinji, isn't sure how to play as an anti in the new lineup. 1 year ago in April, Misumi's biker mom drops him off at school. She tells him he'll be living in a dorm now, so he'll need to take care of himself. She strictly warns him not to hang out with any snooty weebs. Misumi spends his high school days getting phone numbers from all the cool girls around school. But his fun times come to an end when Yura shows him a video of himself beating up a bunch of people and says his defense moves are amazing. Yura then asks Misumi if he's ever heard of Kabaddi. It turns out, Yura takes him to the Kabaddi club, where both he and Masato are seniors. Occasionally, a few extra players from outside the club join in. Misumi quickly picks up the game and plays extremely well, mastering everything fast. However, when he faces Masato, he struggles because Masato is a speed maniac. In the end, even without Shinji by his side, Misumi feels sure of himself and isn't scared of anything. Back in the present, later that night, Soma tells Misumi that they're losing fewer points now but still haven't managed to take the captain down even once. Misumi agrees and says that in Kabaddi, if the defense isn't strong, there's no way to catch up. He thinks back again to their very first matchup, when they were up against a team full of monsters. The bad part was that most of the players on their side weren't even from the team, and Misumi was an easy target who got touched by the opponents right away. But each time, Masato managed to bring him back by scoring on his raids. Little by little, Misumi started feeling like it would be better if he wasn't there, because every time he went in, he just ended up giving points to the other team. After the tournament, the players who weren't actually part of the team left, and Misumi knew he needed someone with strong defensive skills who wouldn't give up points so easily. So, he goes straight to Shinji to try and convince him to join their team. Misumi quickly asks if he's in some kind of club, but Shinji says he used to be, explaining that he was a pitcher in baseball, but now he can't move precisely enough anymore. Misumi then asks him to join Kabaddi with them, and later, Shinji heads to the gym to practice with Yura. But it turns out that, while Shinji is massive in size, he's also the clumsy type who can't really put anything into practice. Moving on to their second competition, Misumi ends up making the exact same mistakes all over again. After the match, he asks Shinji if he's thinking about quitting, saying that if he quits now, it'll be just like baseball. This makes Shinji angry, and he snaps at Misumi, saying that if he had devoted himself to anything, he wouldn't have ended up like this in the first place. Right after that, Misumi punches him and the two of them start fighting like a couple of street brawlers. Suddenly, Masato arrives and smashes both of them on the ground. Back to the present, Misumi runs into Shinji while running and they both talks about Masato's monster and how strong that is. Misumi says that he ended up connecting with him again eventually and right now. Growing and assisting Masato is the coolest thing they can do. However, Shinji asks if they are competing with each other again, but Misumi replies that they should go back to how they were way back then. The next day, Yura and Masato notice that Hitomi, Shinji, and Tatsuya have changed a lot lately, and Masato also points out that Tatsuya seems to be making plays on purpose that help the people around him stand out. After that, their training match starts with Masato raiding again while the rest of them go on defense. Masato moves quickly, almost like he's in Ultra Instinct mode, and goes to tag Soma, but Soma dodges. Then Misumi moves in to try and tag Masato, but Masato tags him instead and makes it safely back to his spot. After that, it's Tatsuya's team's turn, and Masato knows they can come up with plans and move together. But then Tatsuya manages to grab the leg of the person closest to Masato. However, Masato instantly throws him to the ground, and at this point, they don't have a single member who can match Masato's level. Afterward, it's Team Misumi's turn once again, and Masato doesn't even take breaks in between and still feeling energetic. Soma and Misumi wonders that it doesn't show anything on Masato's face, as ever since forever, someone charged toward the enemy with a nonchalant expression and saved them countless times. Afterward, Masato begins walking towards Misumi like a zombie, but Misumi dodges and all of them starts running after Masato. However, Masato dodges, and they end up crashing into each other. Then Masato moves toward them again, and Misumi quickly dodges, ready to use the strategy they came up with earlier. Masato notices that Soma can now read his movements, and it's clear they're working well together because he has nowhere else to run. Soma grabs Masato's leg, but Masato still pulls off a counter and pushes him to the ground. Then Misumi, fired up, charges straight at Masato and knocks him down. Misumi does everything he can to keep Masato from reaching the finish line, but in the end, Masato still manages to touch it with his finger. After that, Masato tells everyone they should stop doing this kind of practice because there's no real weight to his raids, and if they get too used to only facing him, they'll struggle against other raiders. He explains that when they're in a group, each person's quirks stand out, and based on the quirks he's noticed, he's going to give each of them a specific technique to work on. The next day, the entire team arrives at Akagakibo Station, and Yura tells T-Hem that at a place called Saitama Koyo High School, there are strong players. Later, two students named Sakura Manabu and Yudo Hiramoto from Saitama Koyo School welcomes them, and they are juniors of Yura and Masato Oswell. Sakura apologizes to Masato for some past problems, and Yura tells Tatsuya that Sakura is a raider just like him. Later, everyone changes their outfits for a training match with Saitama Koyo School, and first to raid is Sakura against members of Tatsuya and his team. Looking at Sakura, Misumi wonders that he has low stance, a difficult-to-read center of gravity, and a weird gaze which is exactly like Masato. Meanwhile, Sakura almost touches Hitomi and then quickly evades and touches Nobutaka. Misumi and Tatsuya realize that it's a feint, but Tatsuya thinks that in this situation, Masato would have done the same as well, as he traced his style perfectly. Meanwhile, Sakura doesn't go back to his territory and instead goes to attack Hitomi once again, and Yura also realizes that with this lineup, Sakura got the advantage in build. However, Masato's counters work even when he's on defense. BTU Sakura manages to turn around and touches the finish line, making his raid successful with 2 points gained. After the match, Sakura's teammate also scolds him for going so harshly, but then, Masato arrives and tells him that he was right on the mark. Seeing that, Yura feels that it's not good, as this sense of anxiety from having the unbeatable ace sent out, but if this were a tournament, then something bad would have happened. Meanwhile, Tatsuya tries the same spin move that Sakura did and asks if he used a spin to get back to his territory, wondering if it can be used for things other than touches. Sakura tells him it was a little different, but spins can be used outside of attacking, like for dodging, and that he built on the things Masato taught him. Tatsuya then asks if, when Masato caught him, Sakura had already planned for that, but Sakura says it's just that he's always trying to think 2 or 3 steps ahead of what his opponent is expecting. Sakura says that the time he spent away from Kabaddi makes him want to practice even harder now. When Tatsuya hears that, he freaks out and asks if Sakura actually left Kabaddi. Sakura admits that he quit until the winter of last year, but Tatsuya immediately asks why he left, wondering why someone who could go head-to-head with Masato would ever quit. Hiro steps in and tells Tatsuya that it's not something to talk about casually, and the two of them start to walk away. But Tatsuya calls out, saying that if they win the game, Sakura has to tell him the reason. Sakura accepts the challenge. After a while, the game between Nukin and Koyo begins again, and this time, Koyo is going to raid first. Sakura is the one to raid, and both of their teams have a first-class raider, but their defense is still unskilled. Sakura uses his leg to touch Yura, but then Soma charges towards him, so Sakura uses his hand to keep him away. Seeing that, Misumi realizes that he swings big, even if it leaves him wide open as he aims to get lots of points. Suddenly, Yura grabs Sakura's leg, catching him completely off guard. Sakura knows he will win in a power contest without a doubt, so he uses his strength to move toward the finish line. But Misumi joins Yura to stop him. Sakura tries to shake them off with his spinning move, but it doesn't work because Shinji also grabs him. Together, they manage to tackle Sakura and throw him to the ground, stopping his attack, and Koyo fails the raid. Yura appreciates Misumi and Shinji because their abilities took him down, and then, Shinji and Misumi start flexing as if they are some world champion Kabaddi players. After that, it's Seiki, Hitomi, and Tatsuya's turn to face Koyo's other members. Meanwhile, Masato signals Yura to look at Tatsuya, who is making a strange face. Everyone wonders if Tatsuya wants to go raid first, even though they know it's better for Masato to go first. Still, Masato and the others encourage Tatsuya and remind him that if he loses, Sakura will come back. Tatsuya starts moving to touch one of the members, but their timing to catch him is all mixed up. Then, Tatsuya moves back to cross the balk line because if he doesn't, there will be a 1-point penalty. Tatsuya then runs straight towards the players without slowing down, which scares all of them, but then, he quickly changes his angle while touching 3 members and gains 2 points. Seeing that, Masato realizes that there is no need for him to go yet, but Yura wonders if that was a technique he has been practicing. Watching everything happen, Sakura thinks that Masato letting him raid must mean Masato recognizes his skill. But for Sakura, there was only one person whose opinion mattered, and it wasn't about being recognized as it was about feeling peace of mind, and that person was his grandma. After some time passes, Sakura finally gets the jersey of his Kabaddi team and runs straight to show his grandma how strong he has become. But his grandma has already forgotten about him and is very sick. After that, Sakura quits playing Kabaddi. Back in the present, it's Hiro's turn to raid while Nukin is going to defend, and Hiro goes to touch Tatsuya first, but he dodges. Yura realizes that Hiro isn't especially strong at anything except coming up with good strategies. Then, Tatsuya and the other players connect their arms together to make a chain because Masato told them that this is the only way they can stop someone who moves really fast during their raid. After they form this chain, Hiro starts moving toward Tatsuya, but all of a sudden he vanishes from sight completely. Masato then yells out loudly that Hiro is underneath all of them because Hiro slides under Tatsuya's body after touching his leg first, which allows him to earn 1 point for their team. Right after this happens, Yura understands that the opposing team is going to attack them using a strategy that is specifically designed to prevent them from losing a huge number of points all at once, and Sakura begins thinking very deeply about the situation like someone who is completely obsessed with figuring out the perfect solution to this problem. After that, Masato goes for the raid and quickly attacks the players, moving toward Sakura. But another member grabs Masato's leg, and it turns out they used Sakura as bait. Masato tries to fight back, but it doesn't work because they know his counters are similar to martial arts moves. Still, Masato manages to escape and touches several of their members. In the end, Masato dodges Sakura's touch and manages to touch him too. However, when Masato tries to get away, Sakura pushes him to the ground. The good thing is that Masato still scores and gains 4 points for his team. After the round, Masato tells Sakura that he shouldn't even think about surpassing him because it's not going to be easy. Suddenly, Masato starts bleeding from his head, and the next round begins, but Team Koyo decides to take Alona. This means that when only a few players are left on the court, someone can choose to take Alona voluntarily, which makes all the remaining players go out. Because of this, the other team gets points for the players who were still in the game. Meanwhile, Sakura feels sad about hurting someone he really cares about, but his team encourages him, and now Sakura goes for a raid again. Since Sakura is an anti, his only goal is to either dodge or catch, but as he gets closer to all of them, he adds a small touching move. All the members of Nukin step back when they see Sakura coming, which makes Masato feel something is off. Masato then runs toward them, but instead of touching the person right in front of him, he decides to touch Seiki, who is standing on the side. Seiki tries to push Sakura away, but Sakura dodges easily and moves deeper into their side. Masato also realizes that Sakura is trying to score a lot of points at once. Suddenly, Yura appears out of nowhere and grabs Sakura's leg because he doesn't want Sakura to get a bonus so easily. But Sakura remembers a moment just like this from when he and Masato were younger, and how Masato dodged a similar attack. So, Sakura copies that same move and manages to touch Yura. Everyone is shocked that Sakura touches 3 people at once, even though they are defending tightly. Afterward, Misumi and Shinji create a chain to stop Sakura, but Sakura moves straight towards them like a bull. He then grabs both of their hands and breaks the chain to move forward, and Sakura thanks them for giving him a reason to seek to be stronger and to live up to Masato's expectations as he have polished his skills and trained his body. Soma struggles to go ahead because if he does, he knows that he is going to get touched, but then, Misumi grabs Sakura from behind to stop him from reaching the finish line, but then, Sakura quickly changes his angle and touches Soma with his leg. Just like that, Sakura reaches the finish line and the referee makes an announcement that the Koyo team gets 1 point from the bonus rule and 6 more points from all the touches that Sakura made during his raid. When everything is finished, Sakura does not smile nor does any kind of fancy celebration pose, even though he just earned 7 points for his team, and instead he bows down to show his respect toward the Nukin team and especially toward Masato as a way to thank them for the good match they played. At the same time, all the players on the Nukin team cannot believe what they just witnessed because one single person managed to score 7 points all by himself, and they start thinking that they will probably never get to see anything as amazing as this performance again in their entire lives. At the same time, Sakura thinks that Tatsuya is the only one he still can't catch. But Tatsuya feels like Sakura's thanks are a joke because he worked really hard training and made it through to repay a kindness as a way of thinking that Sakura doesn't seem to understand or have. Suddenly, Tatsuya charges at Team Koyo as the raider, moving fast like a wild beast. He almost manages to touch Sakura, but the other team members quickly surround Tatsuya, knowing that he is only going after Sakura. Yura tells Misumi that if they really want to get back on their feet here, the only option is to drive Sakura out, and he thinks that something about Sakura seems off. Meanwhile, Tatsuya thinks that Sakura isn't moving badly, but Sakura is only focused on dodging because he's not in the right position to catch. So, Tatsuya finally moves toward Sakura, touches him, and quickly pulls back. He almost falls but still manages to reach the finish line. However, Sakura suddenly appears out of nowhere and crashes into him, knocking him to the ground. Just like that, Nukin's raid fails and the Team Koyo celebrate their comeback. After that, Nukin sets up again with a 7-man defense, and being cautious of Sakura, they try hard to stop him from getting another big score. But Sakura still manages to get touches this round, and now their team's score is 18 while Nukin's score is 14. After the break, Tatsuya steps outside to get some fresh air and Masato comes over, handing him a cold bottle of water. Masato tells him that failing a raid is something that happens often, but if he keeps letting it bother him, it will never end. He then asks if Tatsuya's legs are okay, since changing directions puts more strain on them than he might realize. Masato also shares that the move Tatsuya used earlier, going backward, is actually a skill Masato was aiming for too. Tatsuya asks why he didn't say that earlier, because if he had, Tatsuya might have been closer to mastering it. However, Masato explains that the move puts a huge amount of strain on the body, and that's the reason he ended up in the hospital. He tells Tatsuya that he has a natural talent for shifting his weight, adjusting his stride, and pulling off feints at a national level. After that, Masato walks away, and it turns out Sakura was secretly listening to their conversation. Sakura then realizes that in soccer, Tatsuya was actually recognized as an athlete at the national level. After that, the second half of the match begins, with Nukin starting as the raiders. Tatsuya is raiding again, and Koyo wonders if he's going to use the same sharp cut technique as before. As Tatsuya runs toward them, they begin flanking him, expecting the cut. Even so, Tatsuya manages to touch one of Koyo's members and then quickly runs back, but the Koyo players block his path. Tatsuya instantly uses incredible moves to touch them as well before landing safely on the finish line. Misumi tells Tatsuya that he did a great job, but Tatsuya replies that it was a total failure because it was only by chance that he was in a position to knock out the enemy, and Masato also realizes that back isn't a skill used to get a huge number of points. After that, the match goes on with Nukin on defense, and as usual, Sakura is the one raiding. He quickly tricks 2 of their players, touches them, and makes it safely back to his finish line, earning 2 points. Afterward, Tatsuya fights hard without holding back, but the gap in points doesn't close, and both teams start reaching their peak level of exhaustion. In the end, they can't hold off against Sakura's fierce attacks. After that, they switch in Seiki, and when Seiki comments that it's better he wasn't there earlier, Misumi suddenly recalls his past and grabs Seiki. Afterward, the match begins again with Nukin in defense, but this time they have Masato with them. Misumi realizes that Sakura will target the captain until he sees an opening among the rest of them. Sakura keeps moving toward them, and just as he's about to reach Masato, Misumi rushes at him. But Sakura simply touches him and throws him to the ground, showing the power of experience. After that, Sakura touches the other members and even manages to touch Masato in the end. However, when Sakura tries to return to his side, Misumi quickly grabs him, determined not to let him go this time. Even so, Sakura still manages to reach the finish line. Now that 1 minute is left and there is a 5-point gap, and even Masato is out. Now, it's Koyo's turn for defense and Yura realizes that Sakura has no openings now, and with the remaining time, they would get at most 2 more raids. Meanwhile, Misumi is frustrated with himself for playing like a clown, but seeing him like that, Shinji wonders if he gives him some encouragement, would it help him get back on his feet? On the other hand, Tatsuya gets ready for his raid. Seeing Tatsuya, Hiro wonders that they have enough of a lead that they don't need to worry, and they would sacrifice one player and send Tatsuya back. Tatsuya comes from a world where every point matters a lot, and he learned through tough experiences that running the clock and wasting time can be a valid strategy. He then quickly charges toward the Koyo members, even though their current defense isn't set up to take him down. However, Tatsuya quickly starts touching the members, hoping to score more points than Sakura. One of them tries to push him, but he dodges and keeps touching more players to increase his score. He then rushes toward the finish line and almost reaches it, earning 3 points. Hiro then taunts Tatsuya, asking if he wanted another 2 points, and this makes him angry. Seeing that, Yura realizes that for them to make a comeback, they needed to gain a lot of points there. Considering them time that's left, they only have one more chance to raid, and there won't be another chance for Masato to raid in this match. Hiro also realizes that Tatsuya did a great job, it is that he is up against the wrong opponent. Afterward, it's Sakura's turn to raid while the rest of Nukin are going for defense, and if they don't stop Sakura, the match is pretty much over. Sakura quickly rushes to tag Soma, and Soma notices that Sakura's moves are getting sharper and faster. Sakura tries to tag Soma using his foot, but then Tatsuya steps in and tries to push Soma away. However, Sakura's fingers end up touching both Tatsuya and Soma. Right after that, Sakura dashes toward the finish line, but Misumi suddenly appears out of nowhere and grabs him along with Tatsuya, Soma, and Shinji too, because Misumi knows he can't perform that well all on his own. Masato notices that Misumi is using the players coming at him as a shield. Meanwhile, Sakura is thinking about trying the flip technique again, but before he can, Misumi grabs him, making Sakura realize that Misumi isn't going to give up this time. Even so, Sakura goes for the flip anyway, but then sees that Misumi isn't chasing right away. Just as Sakura is about to reach the finish line, Misumi suddenly jumps at him, blocking his way. He not only tackles him but also stops his hand from touching the finish line. After that happens, everyone feels shocked by what they just saw, especially Misumi, who keeps thinking over and over about how he was able to stop Sakura from scoring. The players on the Koyo team, however, understand that Misumi noticed the danger coming toward him and dealt with it right away, which is something that would not be possible for someone to do unless they have real skill and lots of practice. With only 15 seconds remaining on the clock and their team being behind by 2 points, Sakura feels really frustrated and disappointed with his own performance during the match. His teammates come over and gather around him to offer support, and they explain to him that once he managed to get Masato out of the game, he had already completed his important job for the team, so now he should trust them and let them handle the remaining time in the match. Hiro then speaks up, saying it's their turn because Sakura has been carrying the team alone. Hiro also says that when Sakura is on the court, they focus on protecting him, but this next defense will be different. They have practiced a lot against Sakura, and now they're ready to show what their defense is really capable of. Meanwhile, Masato thanks everyone for their support, but Tatsuya tells them that making a comeback looks tough since they need 3 points in a very short amount of time. After the timeout ends, the Kabaddi match starts again with the Nukin team going on their raid. Tatsuya goes for his final raid of the game, but then one of the other team members runs straight at Tatsuya because he wants to push him out of the playing area. But Tatsuya does not run away or move to the side and instead touches the person to get a point for his team. Tatsuya thinks to himself that now he can use the open space to reach the other players on the opposing team, but he finds out that they are standing much farther away than he thought they would be. Tatsuya then tries to touch a guy who has yellow hair, but another member from the other team shows up behind Tatsuya and blocks his way forward. Right away, Tatsuya touches the person who is standing in front of him with his hand and pushes the person who is behind him using a backward push with his back. This way, Tatsuya deals with both defenders at the same time and continue trying to score more points for his team during this important final raid of the match. Earlier in the game, Yura explains to Tatsuya about a strategy where he tells him that in order to prevent the opposing team from scoring a huge number of points all at once, the other team will probably spread their defenders out across the court, and when Tatsuya goes in to try to catch players, they will block his path so he cannot run back to his side or make a quick cut to escape. So Yura suggests that Tatsuya should use the way they position themselves on the court and create a plan for targeting the remaining players who are standing on the opposite side of the playing area. Tatsuya then successfully touches another person during his raid, but he gets blocked by the remaining members of the Koyo team who suddenly appear from behind him and surround him. However, Tatsuya simply turns around and starts walking straight toward Hiro, who starts remembering different moments about Sakura and his techniques, and Hiro decides that he does not want to give up on defending, so he charges directly at Tatsuya with the intention of stopping his advance. Even so, Tatsuya just spins his body around in a circular motion, which is exactly the same technique that Sakura uses when he goes on his raids. Hiro refuses to give up on his defensive effort and tries his absolute best to prevent Tatsuya from reaching the finish line and scoring points for his team, but Tatsuya also puts in his maximum effort and moves his body like a wild animal that is trying to escape from danger, and he finally succeeds in reaching the finish line at the end of the court. Tatsuya manages to gain 4 points for his team during this raid, and now both of the competing teams have exactly the same score, which means they are completely tied with each other in the match. Later that evening, everyone celebrates together, and Sakura reminds Tatsuya that he said if he lost, he would have to explain why he quit Kabaddi. Tatsuya replies that if the sport made someone as strong as Sakura quit, then it must be for a really big reason. After that, Sakura shakes Misumi's hand with a powerful grip, like a strong gorilla. Just like that, the Nukin team enjoys their time together. Will Tatsuya's desperate final raid be enough to close the gap and secure victory for Nukin? Comment Kabaddi if you'd like a part 2 of this series. Make sure to like and subscribe the channel for more.